You're standing in a banquet hall in Samarkand. It's 2 hours past midnight, and 30 minutes ago you watched your emperor murder a man with a spear. You're a servant. Your job was pouring wine, staying invisible, but you can't stay invisible now because the body is still on the floor. Alexander the Great is sitting next to it, not standing, sitting, on the floor, in the blood. He's holding the man he just killed, and he hasn't said a word. There are 100 people in this room, generals, bodyguards, musicians, all of them standing exactly where they were when it happened. No one's moving, because no one knows what moving means right now. Does moving mean you're helping or fleeing? And if you flee, does that make you a traitor? You don't know. So you stand there, like everyone else. The man on the floor is named Cleitus, was named Cleitus, 47 years old, one of Alexander's generals, one of his oldest friends, the man who'd known him since he was a child. And 6 years ago, Cleitus saved Alexander's life. In battle, cut down a Persian cavalryman who was about to kill him. Alexander was 22, wearing a helmet that didn't fit, and Cleitus pulled him out of the river. Alexander told him, "I owe you my life," and Cleitus said, "You don't owe me, I'm your brother." Tonight, Alexander killed him. An argument. Cleitus said something. Alexander grabbed a spear, walked across the room, put it through Cleitus's chest, one thrust. Cleitus didn't even raise his hands. He dropped. Blood came fast, and Alexander just stood there, holding the spear, like he'd forgotten what spears do. Then he dropped the spear, got on the floor, and picked up Cleitus. That was 30 minutes ago. He hasn't let go. You're still holding the wine jug. It's heavy. Your arm's tired, but you don't put it down, because putting something down makes a sound, and sound means you exist, and right now, existing feels dangerous. So here's what you're thinking. This is the man who conquered half the world, who defeated the Persian Empire, who's never lost a battle. 34 battles, won every one, 2 million square miles, from Macedonia to Egypt to India, 11 years of marching, and tonight he killed the man who saved his life. And now he's sitting on the floor, holding a body, not conquering anything. How do you go from saving someone's life to getting killed by them? How does "I'm your brother" turn into a spear through the chest? To understand that, you need to go back 6 years, to the battle where Cleitus saved him, to the moment that saving Alexander's life became the worst decision Cleitus ever made. Because when you owe someone your life, you have two choices. You can spend the rest of your life being grateful, or you can spend it resenting the fact that you needed saving in the first place. Alexander chose wrong. 336 BC, 8 years before the spear. Alexander is 20 years old, standing at his father's funeral. Except it's not really a funeral. It's a crime scene. Philip II of Macedonia was assassinated, stabbed in the theater during his daughter's wedding, in front of 600 guests. The killer was one of Philip's bodyguards, Pausanias. He ran 50 meters before Philip's soldiers caught him and killed him. Convenient. Now he can't tell anyone who ordered the hit. Everyone thinks they know. Alexander's mother, Olympias, Philip's ex-wife, divorced 2 years earlier, publicly humiliated. She had every reason to want Philip dead. No one can prove it. But in Macedonia, if people think you killed the king, you either run or become the next king. Olympias didn't run. Alexander didn't ask questions. Standing behind him, in full armor, is Cleitus. Cleitus is 39, Philip's senior commander for 15 years, and his sister Lanique was Alexander's wet nurse. In Macedonian culture, your wet nurse's family was your family. By milk, not blood. That bond was permanent. So Cleitus, standing behind Alexander, sends a message. Philip's old guard is with the boy. If you want to challenge him, you go through me first. Alexander needs that message, because he's inheriting a disaster. Philip left debts, 500 talents, about $15 million. The treasury is empty. The army hasn't been paid in 2 months. and 3 neighboring kingdoms are mobilizing troops. The old king is dead. The new king is a child. Let's invade. Inside the palace, it's worse. Rivals. Philip had 7 wives. Alexander has half-brothers, cousins, uncles, all with claims to the throne, all thinking, if I kill Alexander this week, I become king. Alexander makes a decision. Fast. 3 days after the funeral, he gives the generals a list of names, his cousins, his half-brothers, Philip's other sons. He says, kill them, all of them, by the end of the week. The generals do it. In Macedonia, when a new king takes power, this is what happens. You kill everyone who might kill you. It's not paranoia, it's procedure. Cleitus carries out the orders. He doesn't refuse. He's a soldier. But privately, drinking with other officers, he says, the boy is starting to sound like his mother. It's a joke. Sort of. But it's true. Olympias had taught Alexander that mercy was weakness, that the only safe enemy is a dead one. Alexander learned the lesson. Maybe too well. By week's end, he's purged his rivals, cousins, claimants to the throne, anyone who might say, I should be king instead. Most of them are young, some are barely more than children, but they're all potential threats, and Alexander is alive. So in his mind, it worked. Cleitus doesn't say anything to Alexander, just files it away. A mental note. The boy he helped raise just killed his cousins, and Cleitus helped him do it. But the biggest problem is the debt. 500 talents. Alexander has no money. 2 options. Raise taxes and get overthrown in 3 weeks. Or do what Philip was planning before he got stabbed. Invade Persia. Take their money. This is what people don't know about Alexander's Persian conquest. It wasn't a glorious mission, wasn't revenge, wasn't about spreading culture. It was a heist. Alexander needed money. Persia had money. So he took an army and started robbing treasuries. Cleitus goes with him. Because that's what you do when the boy you raised becomes king. You follow, even when you're not sure where he's going, even when you suspect he might not come back. 334 BC, Alexander crosses into Asia, 22 years old, 40,000 men, $15 million in debt. Cleitus is with him, right behind him, like at the funeral. 3 months later, Cleitus is going to save his life. May 334 BC, the Granicus River, northwestern Turkey. Alexander is about to do something incredibly stupid. 3 months in Asia, a few small skirmishes, but this is the first real battle. The Persians are waiting on the other side of the river. Fast river, steep banks, 20,000 Persian cavalry on high ground. Their plan, let the Macedonians cross, get stuck in the mud, waist deep, then charge down and kill them. Every general tells Alexander the same thing. Don't cross here. Find a better place. Wait until tomorrow. Alexander says no. We cross here, now, because if we wait, they'll think we're afraid. It's not strategy, it's ego. But in Alexander's mind, ego is strategy. He's 22. He's in debt. He can't afford to look weak. Cleitus is right next to him, on horseback, full armor, sword sharpened twice that morning because he knows what's about to happen. They go in. 1,500 cavalry, straight into the river. Water hits the horses' chests. Current pulls. Mud grabs. Persians charge. Chaos. Horses slipping. Men falling. Spears from above. The Macedonians can barely fight because they're trying not to drown. Alexander is in front, not because he's brave, because if the men see him at the back, they'll break. He's wearing a helmet that doesn't fit. The royal armorer didn't have time to make a new one. He makes it across, gets to the bank, kills a Persian soldier, then another. The Persian commanders see him, recognize the white plume, the royal insignia. That's Alexander, the king. Kill him and the war is over. 2 ride straight at him, Rusaces and Spithridates, Persian nobles, experienced commanders. Rusaces gets there first, on Alexander's right. raises his curved blade, swings at Alexander's neck. Alexander tries to block. Off balance, shield on the wrong arm. The helmet shifts, the sword hits, cuts the plume, splits the bronze. The helmet cracks. Alexander's head snaps to the side. Stunned. Can't see, can't hear. And Spithridates is already behind him, raising his sword, going for the exposed neck. This is where Alexander dies. 22 years old, 3 months into his campaign, 15 million in debt, killed in a Turkish river. Except Cleitus is there, 10 meters away. Too far. He throws his horse forward, full gallop, swings at Spithridates' arm. The blade connects, cuts through the wrist. The hand, still holding the sword, falls into the river. Spithridates screams, falls. Cleitus doesn't stop, grabs the back of Alexander's armor, drags him backward to the Macedonian lines, hands him to 2 soldiers. Get him out. Then turns and goes back into the fight. The battle lasts another hour. The Macedonians win. Barely. They lose over 100 men. The Persians lose 2,000. Alexander wakes up in a tent, head bandaged, his helmet on the ground, split in half. Someone tells him what happened. Spithridates, the raised sword, the severed arm. Cleitus did it. Alexander walks out, finds Cleitus sitting with other commanders, drinking. Blood on his armor, not his blood. Alexander walks up to him, hugs him, in front of everyone, something he almost never does. He says, "I owe you my life." Cleitus looks up, still sitting, still holding his cup, says, "You don't owe me, I'm your brother." Alexander smiles. He means it. In that moment, he genuinely means it. He's 22, he almost died. He's grateful. But here's what he doesn't know yet. When someone saves your life, you have 2 choices: grateful or resentful that you needed saving. Because every time Alexander looks at Cleitus after this, he'll see 2 things: the man who saved him, and the moment he needed saving. The moment he wasn't invincible. The moment he was just a kid with a bad helmet, drowning, about to die. And as Alexander wins more battles, conquers more cities, gets called the Great, that second thing will bother him more and more. Cleitus isn't just a friend, he's a witness to the fact that Alexander the Great once wasn't great. He was just Alexander, scared, mortal, helpless. 6 years from now, Cleitus will remind him of that, and Alexander will kill him for it. But right now, with blood still fresh on Cleitus's armor, Alexander doesn't know that. He just knows he's alive. And he's grateful. He orders a feast, gives Cleitus gifts, a cavalry command. 3,000 men, gold and silver, enough to make him wealthy. Cleitus accepts, but he doesn't look like a man who just got rich. He looks like a man who just did his job. Because to Cleitus, this isn't a transaction. This is what brothers do. You save each other. You don't keep score. But Alexander is keeping score. He doesn't mean to, but he is. That's what kings do. They keep track of debts, of favors. That's how you stay in power. Cleitus wants to be Alexander's brother. Alexander wants to be everyone's king. You can't be both. After Granicus, Alexander doesn't stop. He can't. He's still in debt. The only way out is forward. He marches south, down the Turkish coast, taking cities: Miletus, Halicarnassus, Tarsus. Some surrender, some fight. He wins. Cleitus is with him, commanding cavalry, fighting in the front lines, still saving Alexander's life. Not dramatically like Granicus, but regularly, covering flanks, doing the job. Every time Alexander thanks him, gives rewards, gold, men, titles, trying to pay off the debt. But you can't balance this ledger. Cleitus isn't asking for payment, he's asking for brotherhood. November 333 BC, Issus, southern Turkey. Alexander faces Darius III. Darius commands 100,000 men. Alexander has 40,000. Darius has chariots, war elephants, the best cavalry. He's positioned in a narrow valley where Alexander can't use his numbers. It should be a massacre. For the first hour, it is. Persian arrows, Macedonian soldiers falling, Alexander's left flank collapsing. Then Alexander does what he always does when losing. He attacks, not the army, Darius himself. He takes his cavalry, Cleitus commanding the left wing, and charges straight at the emperor. It's insane. It's genius. Darius isn't expecting it. Suddenly there's Alexander, covered in blood, screaming, coming at him. Darius panics, turns his chariot, runs. The emperor of Persia sees one blood-covered Macedonian king and runs. When the Persian army sees their emperor running, they break. All 100,000. Drop weapons. Run. It's a rout. Alexander captures Darius's camp, his family, his treasury. Enough gold to pay off all 15 million in debt, plus fund the rest of the campaign. For the first time since becoming king, Alexander isn't broke. And Cleitus was there, commanding the left wing, holding the line when the center charged, keeping Persians from surrounding Alexander. Cleitus didn't get the glory. Alexander got the glory. But Cleitus did the job that made glory possible. He's starting to notice that. Every time Alexander wins, the story is about Alexander, not about the men who made it possible, not about the cavalry commanders, not about the man who saved his life. But he doesn't say anything. They're winning, and when you're winning, you don't complain. After Issus, Alexander keeps going, south, into Phoenicia, into Egypt. In Egypt, something changes. The Egyptians don't fight. They welcome him, call him Pharaoh, son of Amun-Ra, a god. Alexander has been called king, commander, conqueror, but never god, and he likes it. He visits the oracle at Siwa, a desert temple. The priest confirms it. Alexander is the son of Zeus, not Philip. Zeus, which means he's not just a king, he's divine. Cleitus hears this, laughs, not friendly, bitter. Because Cleitus knew Philip, fought with him 15 years. Alexander isn't the son of Zeus, he's the son of a Macedonian king who got drunk and stabbed at a wedding. But he doesn't say it out loud. You don't tell a man just called a god that his father was mortal, not if you want to stay alive. 331 BC, Gaugamela, northern Iraq, the final battle. Darius brings everything. 200,000 men, more chariots, more elephants, betting the empire. Alexander has 60,000. He wins. Again. Same tactic. Charges Darius. Darius runs. Again. The empire falls. 3 years, 3 battles, 3 empires. Macedonia, Persia, Egypt. Alexander controls all of them. He's 25. Cleitus is still there, still commanding cavalry. At Gaugamela, his wing killed 5,000 Persians, more than most generals kill in their careers. But when historians write about Gaugamela, they write about Alexander. When poets sing, they sing about Alexander. People say, Alexander defeated Darius. Not the Macedonian army, not Cleitus held the left wing, just Alexander won. Cleitus is starting to resent it. He doesn't say it. But he's thinking, I was there, I fought, I bled, and he gets the statues. After Gaugamela, Alexander starts wearing Persian clothes, Persian robes, Persian crown, using Persian customs, court rituals. He marries Roxana, a Persian princess. He promotes Persian nobles into command. The Macedonian generals don't like it. They see Alexander in robes and think, that's the enemy's uniform, but they don't say it. Because Alexander is winning. You don't question a winning strategy. Except once, at a banquet after Gaugamela. Everyone's drunk, celebrating. Cleitus makes a joke, says, nice outfit, your father would have laughed. It's meant to be a joke. Sort of. Alexander laughs. But the laugh has an edge. Cleitus sees Alexander's face tighten, sees the smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Cleitus thinks, he's not taking this well, but someone changes the subject, someone toasts. The moment passes, but it doesn't really pass. Alexander remembers. Cleitus said his father would have laughed, compared him to Philip, mocked him in front of the army. He doesn't say anything that night, but he files it away. A mental note, just like Cleitus has been doing for years. They're both keeping score now. They just don't know it yet. After Gaugamela, Alexander keeps marching east, through Babylon, through Persia, into Central Asia, Bactria and Sogdiana, the harsh frontier at the edge of the empire, in what's now Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. And somewhere along the way, something changes. He's not just conquering Persia anymore, he's becoming Persia. It starts small. Persian kings sit on elevated platforms, above everyone, looking down. So Alexander builds a platform, sits on it. His Macedonian generals stand below, looking up. They don't like it, but they don't say anything. This is what you do when you conquer an empire. You adopt its customs. It's practical, strategic, but it's also the beginning of something else. Then comes proskynesis, the Persian ritual bow, full prostration, face to the ground. You kneel. In Macedonia, you don't kneel to men, only to gods. Men shake hands, stand as equals. That's what separates civilized men from barbarians. But Alexander wants proskynesis. He announces it at a banquet. From now on, when you approach me, you bow. Everyone, Macedonians, Greeks, Persians. The room goes silent. One general, Calisthenes, Alexander's historian, stands up, says, "We don't bow to men, we bow to gods. Are you asking us to treat you as a god?" Dangerous question, because if Alexander says yes, he's declaring himself divine, above them, untouchable. He stops being a king and becomes something else. Alexander doesn't say yes, doesn't say no, just says, "This is how you greet the king of Asia, and I am your king now." Calisthenes refuses, walks out. Alexander lets him go, but he remembers. The other generals don't refuse. They bow. You can see the shame on their faces, but they do it. They've marched 3,000 kilometers, won 3 empires. They're not losing everything over a ritual. But Cleitus sees his friends, men he's fought beside for 15 years, getting on their knees, pressing their faces to the ground, in front of a 25-year-old who used to be the boy he helped raise. He thinks, this is wrong. He doesn't bow, doesn't make a scene. When it's his turn, he walks up, stops, and nods. That's it. A nod, not a bow. Alexander sees it. Everyone sees it. He just looks at Cleitus, a long look. Cleitus looks back. Both understand. The old rules don't apply. The brotherhood is over. Now there's a king and a subject, and subjects bow. Cleitus still isn't bowing. So Alexander makes a decision. He's going to remove Cleitus from court, not by killing him, not yet, by promoting him. He calls Cleitus into a meeting. "I'm making you governor of Bactria." Bactria is a big province, important, a promotion, on paper. But Cleitus knows what it is. It's the worst posting in the empire. Bactria and the lands around it are on fire. A guerrilla war led by a Persian warlord named Spidomenes, ambushes in the mountains, whole Macedonian garrisons wiped out. It's the deadliest front Alexander has. And while Alexander marches on toward India, toward glory, Cleitus gets left behind, to hold the mud, to fight the war no one wins, to die slowly on a frontier, far from the king he saved. That's the promotion. Stay here, in the killing fields, while I move on without you. Alexander explains it like an honor. You've served well. Bactria needs someone I trust, someone loyal. Cleitus just looks at him, because he knows what loyal means now. Not brother, not the man who saved my life, the man who bows when I tell him to. Cleitus says, "When do I leave?" 2 weeks. There'll be a farewell banquet. Cleitus nods, walks out, and starts drinking. Not celebration drinking, mourning drinking. Because he's being sent away, and he knows why. Because he wouldn't kneel. For 2 weeks, Cleitus gets drunk every night. His friends try to talk to him. It's an honor. Take it. Go to Bactria. Live well. But it's not about the position. Alexander has decided Cleitus is a problem. The boy he saved at Granicus has decided his loyalty isn't worth keeping him close. Alexander values Persian rituals more than Macedonian brotherhood. Cleitus is bitter. He's followed this boy since the day he became king, saved his life, won battles, killed thousands for him, and now he's being sent away because he wouldn't kneel. He says it to other officers, late at night, drunk. He's not Macedonian anymore. He wears their clothes, married their women, bows to their gods, and now he wants us to bow to him like he's one of their god kings. The other officers agree, privately, but they're not saying it out loud. They've seen what happens. You get promoted, sent off to govern the deadliest front in the empire while the king marches on without you. The farewell banquet is scheduled for late September 328 BC. Supposed to be a celebration, but everyone knows it's a warning. This is what happens when you don't follow the new rules. Cleitus shows up drunk, not stumbling, but drunk enough that his filter is gone, drunk enough that he's not thinking about consequences. Alexander shows up drunk too. He's been drinking more and more lately, because over the past 2 years he's executed generals for treason, men who fought for him, on evidence that was thin, and every time he told himself it was necessary. He drinks to avoid thinking about it, because if he thinks about it, he'd have to ask, am I becoming paranoid? Am I killing innocent men? Am I turning into my mother? So he drinks, walks into the hall, sees Cleitus, the man who saved his life, the man who refused to bow, the man he's sending away, and he thinks, this is going to be fine. We'll have wine. Cleitus will leave. I'll never see him again. But that's not what happens. The banquet hall in Samarkand is full, maybe 100 people, generals, officers, Persian officials, all here to say goodbye to Cleitus, or pretend to. Food comes out, wine, lots of wine. Alexander at the head of the table, elevated, on his platform, Cleitus near the middle, close enough they can see each other. The first hour is fine. People eat, drink, toast, standard, polite, safe. Then the musicians start. A singer, Persian, young, singing a new song written for tonight. It compares the new generals to the old, and the comparison isn't flattering to the old. The new generals are braver, it says, stronger, more loyal. They don't question. They follow their king without complaint. It's not subtle. The old generals, the ones who fought with Philip, who won the early battles, they're obsolete, relics, in the way. And everyone knows who ordered this song. Cleitus hears it. He's drunk, and he hears this song calling him obsolete. He stands up. The room goes quiet, not because standing is unusual, because of the way he stands. Fast, angry, the kind of standing that means something is about to happen. He looks at the singer, then at Alexander. That's an interesting song. His voice is loud. Everyone stops eating. Everyone's looking at him now. Alexander doesn't say anything, waiting. Cleitus says, the new generals are better than the old. That's what the song says. I wonder if they would have won Granicus, held the line at Issus, won Gaugamela. Alexander's face tightens. Sit down, Cleitus. Cleitus doesn't sit. No, I want to know if these brave, loyal, unquestioning new generals could have done what your father's men did. There it is, the forbidden word. Philip, your father. Alexander says, my father didn't conquer Persia. I did. Cleitus laughs, bitter, drunk, angry. Your father conquered Greece. He built the army, trained the men. You just walked into the palace after he died and took everything he built. And now you're pretending you did it alone. The room is frozen. Cleitus just said the thing everyone thinks but no one says, that Alexander isn't self-made, that his father was the real conqueror. Alexander stands up, face red, shaking. "Get out." Cleitus doesn't. "No, I'm not done. Those old generals you're mocking? They saved your life. Remember Granicus, drowning in that river with your bad helmet? You remember who saved you?" Everyone knows what he's about to say. Everyone knows what happens if he says it. But he's drunk, and he's held this in for 6 years. So he says it. "I did. I saved your life. And you said, 'I owe you my life.' And I said, 'You don't owe me. I'm your brother.'" His voice breaks on brother. Not crying, but close. "But I guess I'm not your brother anymore. I'm just an obsolete old general, getting sent to Bactria, because I wouldn't kneel." Alexander is gripping the platform, knuckles white. "You're drunk. Get out. Before you say something you can't take back." Cleitus says, "What are you going to do? Kill me? Like you killed Philotas? Like you killed your cousins? Like you're going to kill everyone who remembers who you really are?" That's the line. Alexander has been called arrogant, ruthless, but never a murderer, a tyrant. Alexander steps down, walking toward Cleitus. Ptolemy grabs his arm. "He's drunk. He doesn't mean it." Alexander shoves him away. Cleitus isn't backing down, standing there, waiting, face to face. Alexander says quietly, "You owe me everything, your position, your wealth. I gave you all of it, and this is how you thank me?" Cleitus says, "I owe you? I saved your life. You'd be dead if it wasn't for me. And you're telling me I owe you?" Alexander says, "Yes, because I made you. Without me, you'd be nothing." Cleitus pushes him, not hard. A drunk, frustrated push, but you don't push a king. Alexander stumbles back. His generals grab Cleitus, pulling him away. "That's enough. You need to leave." Cleitus lets them drag him to the door, yelling, "You're not a god, you're not Zeus, you're Philip's son, and I knew Philip, and you're not him." They push him out. The door closes. Inside, everyone's standing, no one talking. Alexander just staring at the door, breathing hard. Ptolemy comes up. He's drunk, didn't mean it. In the morning, "Get out. Everyone." People leave, fast. Within 2 minutes, the hall is almost empty. Just Alexander, and a few guards. Then the door opens. Cleitus is back, broken away from the escorts, standing in the doorway, breathing hard. He says, "You owe me your life." 4 words. Loud. Clear. Not slurred. He wants Alexander to hear it. Wants everyone still in the room to hear it. He says it again. "You owe me your life." And Alexander snaps. He grabs the nearest weapon, not his sword. A sarissa, a Macedonian spear, long, heavy, held by a guard against the wall. Alexander rips it away, and he runs, straight at Cleitus, 10 meters. Cleitus sees him coming, doesn't move. Maybe he thinks Alexander won't do it. Maybe he's too drunk. Maybe he doesn't care. Alexander doesn't stop, doesn't slow, doesn't hesitate. When he reaches Cleitus, he drives the spear into his chest, one thrust, straight through. The point comes out the back. Cleitus's mouth opens. No sound, just blood. He looks down at the spear, like he's surprised, like he didn't think this would actually happen. Then he falls, the spear still in him. Alexander goes down with him. For a second, it's quiet. The only sound is Cleitus trying to breathe. Wet. Choking. Then he stops breathing. Alexander pulls the spear out, stands up, looks at what he just did, drops the spear. It clatters on the stone, too loud in the silent room. Then he gets on the floor, next to Cleitus, picks him up, pulls him into his lap. Cleitus's head is heavy, loose, blood everywhere. Alexander doesn't call for help, doesn't try to stop the bleeding, Because there's no point. Cleitus is dead. One spear, one thrust. The guards are still standing by the walls, not sure what to do, so they just watch, and Alexander sits there, holding Cleitus, not crying, not speaking, just holding. Like if he doesn't let go, Cleitus won't actually be dead. But Cleitus is dead, and Alexander killed him. The man who saved his life at Granicus. The man who said, "I'm your brother." The man who refused to kneel. Because he reminded Alexander that he owed him his life, and Alexander is still holding him. We're back where we started. The banquet hall, the body, the blood. Alexander sitting on the floor, holding Cleitus. Except now you understand why. This wasn't just a murder. It was the end of the last connection Alexander had to the person he used to be. Cleitus was the witness. The man who remembered Alexander as a 22-year-old kid with a bad helmet, drowning in a river, and now that witness is dead. Alexander sits there for 30 minutes, not moving, not speaking. His generals stand against the walls, watching. Finally, Ptolemy steps forward. "We should move the body." No. He doesn't even look up, just keeps holding Cleitus. "Alexander, he's dead. You can't. Get out." His voice is quiet, not angry, just empty. The voice of someone who's not really there anymore. They leave, all of them, except 2 guards by the door, because you can't leave a king completely alone. Alexander sits there all night, doesn't sleep, doesn't eat. The blood dries, the body gets cold, and Alexander just sits there. By morning, the palace is in chaos. Word has spread. Alexander killed Cleitus, murdered him, in front of witnesses. The generals meet privately, asking dangerous questions. Is he insane? Should we remove him? But no one acts, because Alexander is still the king, still the undefeated general. You don't remove that man because he killed one general. The second day, Alexander starts crying. Not loud, just tears, running down his face, into Cleitus's hair, still not speaking. Hephaestion comes in, Alexander's closest companion, kneels next to him. He said things he shouldn't have. He was drunk. You had the right. No, I didn't have the right. He saved my life, and I killed him. It's the first full sentence since the murder, an admission. He knows what he did. He knows it was wrong. Hephaestion says, he was a traitor. He insulted you. He pushed you. He was my brother. And that's when he breaks. Full, body-shaking sobs, still holding Cleitus, crying into the dead man's shoulder. Hephaestion doesn't know what to do. He's never seen Alexander like this. He just puts a hand on his shoulder, sits there. By the third day, the body is starting to smell, death, decay, and Alexander still hasn't let go. The generals are worried. A king who sits holding a corpse for 3 days is a king who's not ruling. And when a king stops ruling, people ask who should rule instead. Ptolemy and Hephaestion make a decision. They go in. Don't ask permission. Physically pull Alexander away. He fights. Not hard. No, I can't. I need to. But they're stronger, and he hasn't eaten in 3 days. They drag him out, take him to his chambers, lock the door. Then they go back for the body, wrap it, take it away, to bury Cleitus, with honors, like the general he was. For the next 2 days, Alexander doesn't eat, doesn't speak. His doctors think he's dying, not from a wound, from grief, from guilt. On the 5th day, Alexander calls for someone, not Hephaestion, a philosopher named Anaxarchus, a man who spent years telling Alexander exactly what he wants to hear. Anaxarchus comes, stands, waits. Alexander says, "Tell me it was just. Tell me Cleitus deserved it. Tell me a king has the right." They both know what Alexander is asking. He's asking to be absolved, to turn murder into justice. Anaxarchus is quiet. Then, what did he say? The thing that made you kill him? Alexander doesn't answer at first, then quietly, "He said I owed him my life." Anaxarchus nods, understanding, and he gives Alexander what he came for. The king is the law. Justice sits at his right hand, so that whatever he does is lawful and just. When you struck Cleitus, it was not murder. It was the law, acting through you. A king cannot be a criminal, because a king defines the crime. It's a lie dressed as philosophy. Cleitus insulted him, pushed him, but that wasn't treason. It was a drunk shove. But that's not what Anaxarchus says, because a philosopher who flatters a king lives longer than one who corrects him. So he says the lie, and Alexander makes him say it again, not once, 3 times, because Alexander needs to hear it, needs someone else to say it, needs to believe what he did was justified. After the 3rd time, Alexander says, "Say it again." Anaxarchus says it again. A king cannot be a criminal. The king is the law. Alexander nods, and for the first time in 5 days, he eats, drinks, stands up. He walks to the window, says, "To no one. He said I owed him my life, but I don't owe anyone anything. I'm the king. Kings don't have debts. They have subjects, and subjects who forget their place get what Cleitus got. It's not grief anymore. It's rationalization." Alexander turning guilt into a rule. Don't remind the king he used to be vulnerable. Don't remind him he used to need help. Don't remind him he's mortal. Because kings aren't mortal. Kings are gods, and gods don't owe anyone anything. Anaxarchus hears this, thinks, I just helped him justify murder, and now he sounds like he'd do it again. He's right. Alexander would, and he will. But there's one man at court who won't say the lie, who won't flatter, who was there that night and remembers exactly what happened. His name is Callisthenes, and he's already a dead man. He just doesn't know it yet. After Cleitus, Alexander does what he always does when something goes wrong. He marches, doesn't stop, doesn't reflect, doesn't change. Because if you're moving, you don't have time to think. And thinking is dangerous. The campaign continues. In 326 BC, Alexander reaches India, defeats King Porus at the Hydaspes River. Porus has 200 war elephants. Alexander wins anyway. But something's different after Cleitus. The way he fights. More brutal, more ruthless. Like he's trying to kill the memory of what he did by killing everything else. His men notice. They're exhausted. 11 years of marching. From Macedonia to Egypt to Persia to India. 11 years of fighting, bleeding, watching friends die. They're done. They reach the Hyphasis River, edge of India. Alexander announces, "We keep going, east, to the edge of the world." For the first time in 11 years, they say no. Not Cleitus. Cleitus is dead. But the other generals, Ptolemy, Perdiccas, Craterus, they come to his tent. The men won't march anymore. They want to go home. Alexander says, "We're not going home. We're going forward." They've marched enough, fought enough. They want to see their families. Alexander cuts him off. Since when do soldiers decide what they want? Since when do men tell their king what to do? Everyone knows what he's really saying. Remember what happened to Cleitus. But Ptolemy is brave, or desperate. Cleitus told you the truth, and you killed him for it. Are you going to kill all of us? Every man who tells you something you don't want to hear? Alexander stares at him. Everyone thinks, is he going to grab a spear? But he doesn't, just says, quietly, "Get out." They get out, and Alexander sits alone, realizes something. He can't make them march. He's the undefeated general, the son of Zeus, but he can't make his army march east if they refuse. So he turns around. For the first time in 11 years, Alexander retreats. He calls it strategic consolidation. But everyone knows. It's the army saying no, and Alexander not being able to do anything about it. He's furious, not at the enemy, at his own men, for daring to tell him no, and that fury turns into paranoia. Because if the army can say no to marching, what's stopping them from wanting a new king? Nothing, except fear, except the memory of Cleitus. So Alexander decides. They need more reminders. Around this time, a conspiracy is discovered. Young officers, pages, teenage boys in his court, accused of plotting to kill him in his sleep. The evidence is thin, mostly confessions extracted under torture. One boy says yes, another says no, a third says he didn't know there was a plot. Doesn't matter. Alexander has them all executed. 7 boys, oldest 19, youngest 15, tortured first, then killed. Publicly. But one of the pages, before he died, said, "Callisthenes put the idea in our heads. He said kings shouldn't act like gods." Callisthenes, the historian. The man who refused to bow when everyone else knelt. The man who, when Anaxarchus stood up and called the murder of Cleitus justice, said out loud that it was no such thing. The one man at court who wouldn't say the lie. Now he's accused of treason. He denies it. Says he never told anyone to kill Alexander. Says it's a lie. Doesn't matter if it's true, because Callisthenes is the last honest voice in the room. A man who saw Alexander cry over Cleitus's body and refused to pretend the killing was anything but murder. A man who remembers. And a man who remembers is dangerous, because remembering is treason. So Callisthenes is arrested, thrown in prison. After a few months, he dies. Some say executed, some say illness, some say tortured to death. Doesn't matter how. What matters is why. He died because he wouldn't lie, because he saw Alexander at his weakest and wouldn't call it strength. Now Callisthenes is dead. The pages are dead. Philotas is dead. Cleitus is dead. Alexander's inner circle is getting smaller. The generals who are left notice a pattern. The men who die aren't just traitors. They're witnesses. The men who knew Alexander before he became the Great, who remember him as the boy with the bad helmet, as the king who needed saving. One by one, they're disappearing, and the men who replace them only know Alexander as a conqueror. As a god, those new men bow when told. Don't question, don't remember, don't challenge, which is exactly what Alexander wants. But there's a cost. The new men don't love him, they just have fear and obedience, and the knowledge that if they say the wrong thing, they'll end up like Cleitus. So Alexander gets an army that obeys, a court that bows, but he loses the people who actually knew him, who cared about him not because he was king, but because he was Alexander. And the only person left from the old days is Hephaestion, his best friend, his closest companion, the one person he trusts, the one person who can tell him the truth without getting killed. Hephaestion becomes everything, not just a friend, his emotional anchor, the only tether to the person Alexander used to be, the only reminder that Alexander is still human, which makes Hephaestion the most important person in Alexander's world, more important than any general, any city, any conquest, and that's a dangerous position to be in. 324 BC, autumn, Ecbatana. Alexander has conquered everything from Greece to India, and he's about to lose the only person he has left. Hephaestion gets sick, starts with a fever. Nothing serious at first, the kind of thing that happens when you've been marching for 12 years. The doctors say rest, avoid rich food and wine, and he'll be fine. Alexander doesn't leave his side. Watching Hephaestion breathe, asking the doctors, "Is he getting better?" They say yes. It's just a fever. It'll pass. And for a few days, it seems like they're right. The fever goes down. Hephaestion starts eating, sitting up, talking. He seems fine. Alexander is relieved, because losing Hephaestion would mean being completely alone. No one left who knew him before. No one left who loved him for who he was. But Hephaestion seems better. So Alexander relaxes, leaves the room, goes to attend some games. He's only gone a few hours. While he's gone, Hephaestion gets out of bed. He's hungry, tired of bland food. So he eats. A full meal. Rich food, meat, and a lot of wine. The doctors told him not to, said his body needed more time. But Hephaestion doesn't listen. He's feeling fine. He's a soldier. Soldiers don't lie in bed drinking water when there's wine and meat. So he eats and drinks. And for a while, he's fine. Then, suddenly, he's not. The fever comes back. Much worse. His body goes into shock. He collapses. Can't breathe. Just lying there. Burning. The doctors rush in, try everything. Nothing works. Whatever's inside him, probably typhoid, it's killing him. Fast. Someone runs to get Alexander. You need to come back. Now. Hephaestion. Alexander doesn't wait. He runs. Into the room. Hephaestion is unconscious. Barely breathing. Gray skin. Blue lips. Dying. Alexander grabs him. Wake up. You were fine. What happened? The doctors tell him. The food. The wine. The relapse. Alexander turns on them. You said he was better. You didn't stop him? You just let him kill himself? The doctor has no answer. Alexander turns back. Don't you dare. Don't leave me. I need you. He doesn't finish, because Hephaestion stops breathing. One moment, barely there. The next moment, gone. Alexander doesn't move, just staring at his face, waiting for him to breathe again, waiting for this to be a mistake. But it's not a mistake. Hephaestion is dead. Alexander starts screaming. Not words, just screaming. A noise nothing human should make, the sound of something breaking. He picks up Hephaestion, just like he picked up Cleitus, holds him, rocks him. No, not you. Anyone but you. Then he turns on the doctors, grabs the nearest one, starts hitting him. You killed him! You were supposed to save him! The guards pull him off. The doctor is on the floor, bleeding. I tried. I did everything. Alexander says, execute him. Hang him. I want everyone to see what happens to people who fail me. They hang him in the city center. He dies slowly, choking. It's not justice. It's just Alexander needing someone to blame, because he can't hurt the person who actually killed Hephaestion, because that person is Hephaestion. But killing one doctor doesn't bring him back, doesn't make the pain stop. So Alexander does what he always does when he's in pain. He kills more people. There's a tribe near Ecbatana, the Kasaans, been there for centuries. Not enemies, not rebels, just living, farming, existing. Alexander decides they need to die. All of them. He calls it a sacrifice to honor Hephaestion. He takes his army, marches in, and kills them. Men, women, children. The sources don't agree on numbers. Some say thousands, some say tens of thousands. But everyone agrees. It was a massacre of people who'd never even heard of Hephaestion. They die because Alexander needs to hurt someone, because he can't bring Hephaestion back, but he can make sure the world knows how much he's suffering. After the massacre, Alexander cuts his hair, shaves his head, a Persian mourning ritual, the same one he once mocked. He cuts the manes off all the horses, hundreds of them. Then he sends messengers to the oracle of Ammon, the one that told him he was the son of Zeus, with a question, can I worship Hephaestion as a god? The answer takes weeks. You can honor Hephaestion as a hero, but not as a god. Alexander doesn't care. He orders a funeral pyre, the most expensive in history, 10,000 talents, about $300 million, for a funeral, while the army hasn't been paid in months, while people are starving. He needs the world to know. Hephaestion wasn't just a general, he was everything, and now he's gone. The generals watch this, and they worry, not about Hephaestion, about Alexander, because he's not grieving like a normal person. He's grieving like someone who's lost his mind. They've seen him kill Cleitus, execute Callisthenes, massacre the Caucaeans, and now spend the treasury on a pyre. They're thinking, what's next? Who's next? But no one says it out loud. After the funeral, Alexander announces a new campaign. He's going to conquer Arabia, because Hephaestion always wanted to see it. Or so Alexander says. As if more territory will honor a dead man, as if more killing will make the grief stop. But before the campaign can start, Alexander gets invited to a banquet in Babylon, a Macedonian drinking party. He hasn't forgotten anything, but he's willing to try. So he goes, and he drinks, more than he's ever drunk, like he's trying to drown, like he's trying to die, and maybe he is. June 323 BC, Babylon. 8 months after Hephaestion's death, Alexander is at another banquet. He's been drinking more lately, heavier, longer, like he's trying to drown something, or stop feeling. The party starts in the evening, wine flows. Alexander is drinking with them. But faster, he picks up a cup, a big one, the cup of Heracles. It holds about 2 liters of wine. In Macedonian culture, drinking from Heracles' cup is a challenge. You drain it in one go. Prove you're strong. Alexander drains it. 2 liters. Straight down. Everyone cheers. That's what you do when someone does something stupid and impressive. But then Alexander says, I feel strange. Not drunk strange, wrong strange. Like something inside just broke. He sits down, puts his head in his hands. I need to lie down. His friends walk him to his chambers, lay him on his bed. They think he's drunk. They think he'll just sleep it off. But he's not fine. Next morning, Alexander wakes with a fever, high, burning, sweating through his sheets, can barely sit up, can barely speak. The doctors don't know what's wrong. Could be malaria, typhoid, poisoning, an infection, or maybe just his body giving up after 12 years. The fever doesn't break, it gets worse. Day 2, he can barely eat, barely drink. The doctors try treatments, herbs, potions, bloodletting, nothing works. Day 3, the fever is higher. Alexander is delirious, calling for Hephaestion, asking where he is. The doctors tell him, Hephaestion is dead. He died 8 months ago. Alexander doesn't seem to hear, just keeps asking, keeps calling. Day 4. He can't get out of bed. His generals ask, what do we do? Where do we march? What are your orders? Alexander doesn't answer, just stares at the ceiling, breathing, barely. Day 5. The doctors are panicking. He's getting worse, and they remember Hephaestion's doctor, the man who got hanged. Day 6. The generals are nervous. If Alexander dies, someone has to rule, but he hasn't named an heir. So they start asking, who inherits? Who becomes king? Alexander doesn't answer. Too weak, too far gone. Day 7. He can barely move. Eyes open, but not really seeing. The generals ask again, more urgently, who takes the throne? His lips move. They lean in, trying to hear. He says something. The sources don't agree. Some say, to the strongest. Others say, to Cleitus. But most say he didn't say anything clear. Just a mumble. Something that could have been anything. Or just air leaving his lungs. Whatever he said, if he said anything, it's not enough. Not clear. Not a plan. Day 8. Alexander stops speaking. Can still move his eyes. Still blink, but can't talk. Can't move his arms or legs. Trapped in his body. Watching. Waiting. Day 9. His soldiers hear he's dying. Thousands of them. They line up outside the palace, asking to see him, to say goodbye. They've marched with him 12 years, bled with him. The generals let them file through, one by one, past Alexander's bed. Some cry, some salute, some just stare. Alexander's eyes follow them. He sees them, but can't speak, can't nod. just watches them walk past. Hundreds, thousands, and then they're gone. Day 10, June 10th or 11th. Early morning. Alexander stops breathing. No dramatic last words, no final speech, just breathing, and then not breathing. He's 32. He's been king 12 years, conquered 3 empires, marched from Macedonia to India, never lost a battle, and he dies in a bed in Babylon, alone, surrounded by generals already planning how to divide his empire. The room goes quiet. Someone checks for a pulse. There isn't one. Someone closes his eyes. Someone covers his body. And the generals leave. They have work to do, meetings, armies to command, territories to claim. Because Alexander is dead, and the empire is up for grabs. No one sits with the body. No one holds him. No one cries. Not like Alexander cried for Cleitus. Not like he cried for Hephaestion. Because Alexander killed the people who would have cried for him. Cleitus is dead. Hephaestion is dead. Callisthenes is dead. The old generals are dead. The people who knew him, really knew him, not as a conqueror but as a person, they're all gone. He killed them, or pushed them away, or watched them die. So when Alexander dies, there's no one left to mourn him, just generals calculating their next move. Just an empire waiting to be divided. His body lies there for days, in the summer heat. No one sure what to do with it. The generals are too busy fighting over who gets to rule. Eventually, they embalm it, turn it into a symbol, because even dead, Alexander is useful. A name, a legend, a claim to legitimacy. They put him in a golden coffin, and then they fight over him. For years, his body gets moved from Babylon to Memphis to Alexandria, used as a prop, a piece in a political game. And the empire he built? Within a year, his generals are at war. Within 5 years, it's fractured. Within 40 years, it's gone. Because he built an empire on momentum, on never stopping. And the moment he died, the momentum died too. And everything collapsed. He conquered the world. And he died alone, holding no one, mourned by no one, remembered by everyone, loved by no one. Alexander is dead, 32 years old, no heir who can rule, no plan, just an empire from Greece to India and a room full of generals asking, who's in charge now? The answer is, no one, and everyone. Within hours, they start dividing it up. Whispered deals, alliances made and broken before sunset. First question, who gets the body? Because whoever holds Alexander controls the legend. Ptolemy moves fastest, one of Alexander's oldest friends, the man who once pulled him off Cleitus's corpse. He hijacks the funeral procession, takes the body to Egypt, builds it a tomb in Alexandria. Message sent, Ptolemy has Alexander. The others are furious, but Ptolemy is dug in and rich, so they let it go and turn on each other instead. For the next 40 years, that's what they do. Betrayals, broken alliances, men who once marched together now killing each other over the pieces. Historians call them the Diadochi, the successors. It's not really a succession, it's a scramble, and Alexander's family doesn't survive the scramble. His infant son, Alexander IV, the last of his bloodline, is kept alive for a while, useful as a puppet. Then, at 14, quietly poisoned, buried without a name on the grave. His mother, his wives, his own sister, gone within 15 years. Murdered, poisoned, erased. Nobody with real power left who actually cared whether they lived. Because that's the irony. If Cleitus had lived, maybe someone with the standing and the nerve to say no would have stood between that boy and a knife. But Cleitus was dead, killed by the one man who could have protected them. So there was no one left to protect anyone. Only one man from Alexander's circle comes out of this intact, Ptolemy. And it's not an accident. He's the one man who never tried to be Alexander. He just took Egypt, built a kingdom, and survived. His dynasty lasts 300 years, until Cleopatra, generations later, loses to Rome. Everyone else who tried to inherit Alexander's glory died reaching for it, because his empire was never really a kingdom. It was one man holding everything together by momentum and fear. The moment he stopped moving, it came apart, and it took his entire family down with it. An order held together by power and fear was never going to outlive the man who built it. Alexander conquered the known world, 34 battles, won everyone, and when he died, there was no one left beside him. That's the cost of greatness, not the battles. It's the people you push away, one by one, on the way there. The people you kill with your own hands. If you kill everyone who tells you the truth, eventually you'll have no one left but the people who lie, and they won't cry when you die. If you turn every relationship into a transaction, eventually you'll be surrounded by people who are only there because you pay them. And when you die, they'll fight over your corpse. If you treat the people who save you as burdens instead of brothers, eventually you'll have no one willing to save you. And you'll die alone. Don't be Alexander. Be Cleitus. Tell the truth. Value brotherhood. Don't kneel just because someone tells you to. Because when you die, the question isn't how much you conquered. It's whether there's anyone left in the room, holding your body, actually crying. That's worth more than any empire, more than any victory, more than being called the Great. It's worth everything.